I don't know what to say anymore. I don't know what to say anymore. But welcome in to the Big Blue in the Bronx podcast, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well considering the circumstances. Hit that like button, comment, and subscribe. Turn on post notifications so you know when a live stream pops or a video drops. Share this out. Use the SeatGeek code, $20 off your entire order with the promo code SeatGeek. Promo code SeatGeek. That's how you know I'm tired. Promo code Big Blue in the Bronx for SeatGeek. That's $20 off. Game tickets, parking passes, concerts, etc., etc. That's what you get with SeatGeek and our deal. Well, I don't know if I said this. Right? I don't know if I said this here. But I said it on the phone to two very good friends of mine who are on Twitter. They're content creators. The lesser known content creators, but they have relevant points. And I said to them on the phone during the week, I said, there's two ways this could go. This could be a very close Giants win where they have us buy in a little bit. Hey, we lost to Cincinnati. But, yeah, we beat the Eagles at home. And then there's the other side of that, which it seems like I'm absolutely right on. And again, I don't know if I said it on here, but if you ask those two guys, they'll say, Alex definitely said this. This is a game, if Saquon Barkley goes off, the wheels will start to come off of the fucking car. And ladies and gentlemen, it seems like that is happening. Now, here's the thing, right? You guys are probably mad. You guys are probably angry. You guys are probably disappointed. All the emotions. It's like an Inside Out movie. To me, this is the Giants. This is the Giants. I might have some expletives throughout the course of the show because I'm explaining things, and there's certain things I'm actually not happy with. Of course, because the Giants are now a 2-5 football team. But I'm not mad anymore. I'm really not mad anymore. Like, I can't get pent up on a Sunday because, the Giants reel me in and this, that, and the third. I think the last time I was, traditionally mad about the team was either week 2 or week 4. I watched with no emotion in week 5. I watched with no emotion in week 6. And I sure as hell didn't watch with any emotion in week 7. Because this is who the Giants are. They are a bad football team. Right? They are a bad football team. The fish rots from the head all the way down to the flippers. It's the truth. It's the truth. And the Giants are... You ever see that meme where the kid has that backpack and it's like strings are holding it together? Not the backpack itself is like, it's a good backpack, but it's like a broken backpack. It's like a torn backpack. And there are strings literally holding it together. And the meme says, bro, just let it go. That's what the Giants should do with Daniel Jones. Now, I'm going to give an overview of my point of view as far as, the stuff we're going to talk about. The O-line was atrocious. We'll talk about that. The defense, not great, considering all 28 points were theirs. We'll talk about, of course, who should go, where am I mad at, if there's points where I got to be mad at that I actually have emotion towards. We'll talk about Brian Daboll because, to me, and this could kind of go into the whole offensive segment, which we'll start with first. Kind of getting really sick and fucking tired of the Giants, of me trying to put an excuse out there for Brian Daboll, when at the end of the day, this is the choices that they have come with. This is the choices that they made. Right? At the end of the day, who signed Daniel Jones to the long-term contract? It was the Giants organization. John Mara had a hand in it, of course. No surprise there. Joe Shane had a hand in it. And Brian Daboll, of course, had a hand in it. We could make all these theories, but that's what's on the table, right? We can't make some external theory with tinfoil hats that this is going on, this is going on. For the past few weeks, I've been kind of defending Brian Dable, saying he's handcuffed. He's handcuffed the quarterback. He's just handcuffed because Daniel Jones doesn't know what to do. And I may have said this last week. I definitely did say this last week because I remember there was a whole section about whether the locker room was going to cave in or this, that, and the third. But I said, look, at some point that's going to get old and you're going to need to switch the quarterback because your defense and your players on the team are getting frustrated and you will have no choice but to make a quarterback change. And listen, they opted not to draft a quarterback. With Neighbors there, they took him, and Neighbors has been a great player for the Giants. There's no question about it. But at the end of the day, this is like, you can't blame somebody else for the hole in the sand that you dug yourself. You can't. And the one string that attaches these two guys to a job, and Brian Dable and Joe Schoen, is that there's likely a theory that's true out there that John Mara told these guys, give DJ another shot. And they've been going through with that. Again, it's a theory, but it might be a right theory. The theory of, okay, they got to get their own quarterback. And John Mara's had this sentimental thing towards Daniel Jones because the Giants haven't done him right, and he was connected to the Eli Manning tree and all this other shit. So that's really the only string that Brian Dable and Joe Schoen have to hold on to. Now, again, I'll get into more stuff at the end of the show, but the Giants have done something outside of 2022, and you guys got to register this in your head a little bit, because it's time to read between the lines. And hopefully I convince you of my theory. So I have compared the New York Football Giants this year to 2022 Jets. And I will continue to draw comparisons in those theories and, those teams really, right? So let's take a look at DJ's career. Now, he obviously had Eli Manning as a backup in 2019, Tanny also as well. So, you really didn't need you need this guy for competition. DJ was a rookie, so there's that. Year 2, they bring in Colt McCoy, and he's the backup. He plays for Jones a few games because he was hurt with the hammy. Okay, and he did decent, right? I mean, he wasn't great, but he was a decent backup. He does the job. So 2021, the Giants opt for a worse version in Mike Lennon, and then eventually they sign Jake Fromm, and we know how that goes. Daniel Jones, he pretty much good the first few games, and then he gets into his bad ways. And it's good in terms of 2022 good, where he's not putting up the touchdown stats, but he's having these decent games. And then you go to the Cowboy game, which wasn't great. I mean, he got knocked out with a concussion. And then the Week 6 game was absolutely awful against the Rams. And then they won the next week against the Panthers. It was kind of like fool's gold, if you will. So Jones gets hurt with the neck injury against the Eagles, which was the game I was at. And then they throw in Mike Lennon. And then the first game they threw in Jake Fromm was against the Cowboys. And then he looked good, so Joe Judge is like, let's go with Fromm. Fromm shits the bed against the Eagles. And then Glennon plays against the Bears. And then he gets hurt. And then you have to go out there and trot Fromm out for the Week 17? No, Week 18 game. Because we were at the Week 18 season. That was the first season with 17 games. And I don't even remember who they had as a backup at that point because the Giants were so much in the shitter. And, we obviously saw what came after that. So, again, I'll minus 22 and 23. And I know this is a little long, but just keep listening. You'll see connection. And that was a pivotal year for Daniel Jones, right? He had Kenny Galladay. I understand the O-line was bad, but that was a pivotal year. Like, Daniel Jones has to make this jump in year 3. So he had Kenny Galladay, Kadarius Toney, never threw a touchdown to them. He was just statistically bad. I think he had 11 touchdowns and 10 picks, or 10 touchdowns and 9 picks, some shit like that. So we go to all the way to 2024. Skip forward 3 years. They don't bring back Tyrod Taylor. They stay with Tommy DeVito, and they sign Drew Lock, who is a downgrade from Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor was more money, but I'm going to tell you guys something that you may want to take with you in your Halloween basket and show to your friends. That was on purpose. It doesn't have to do with money. It has to do with perception. The New York Football Giants are scared of controversy, as I've mentioned on this show before. They did not want to put any competition behind Daniel Jones. Now, for the last 2 seasons before this one, it was a little bit of a different story, because Jones obviously played average football in 22. In 23, he was hurt. So you had DeVito in there. You had Tyrod Taylor in there. But a year like this year, it's interesting, right? Because, and I know the O-line was bad in 21. But in 23, you had that given excuse of, oh, the O-line is bad. And you had the excuse in 22, oh, well, he was playing with Richie James and David Sills, a wide receiver. So now when you bump up the talent, you remove the backup that's good, or at least solid, and you move him out there, and I'll tell you why. Why do they move him out there? Because it's like, I don't want to make fun of alcoholics or drug addicts, but it's withdrawal. It's like a bad withdrawal. Daniel Jones plays average football. He plays below average. Then you bring in the backup, like they did Drew Lock, and like they did Mike Lennon, and like they did Jake Fromm, and they play so bad football. The product that comes out of those quarterbacks is so fucking garbage that they make you miss Daniel Jones. Well, let me tell you something. I'm not falling for it. Because I know Daniel Jones is a limited quarterback. He's not a good quarterback. Okay? And the Giants put themselves in this position. So when they want to say, oh, they want to make these excuses about not getting a quarterback or not signing a free agent backup, trust me, there were options. They didn't want to. So that's that little theory. Again, I apologize for taking like the first probably 10 minutes with that whole propagated theory. And when I compare the Jets 2022 team to the Giants 2024 team, it parallels itself because you go from the 2022 season with Mike White and this, that, and the other thing. And then the next season, they opt to not sign Mike White. He goes to the Miami Dolphins. And who did the Jets bring in? They bring in Aaron Rodgers, which is a complete disaster right now, as we all know. They bring in Aaron Rodgers. Wilson's the number 2, so you have no competition. And the number 3 is fucking Tim Boyle, who threw no touchdowns and 7 interceptions in his time in UConn, which kind of surprises me, right? There's a lot of quarterbacks, and I hate going on this little tangent here, but there's a lot of quarterbacks in college, whether it's a small school or a big school, that have better talent and better stats than Tim Boyle. Meanwhile, Tim Boyle made it on an NFL roster because Aaron Rodgers was there or for some fucking reason. So that just shows you where connections get you. But the reason they brought Tim Boyle in is, number 1, Aaron Rodgers. Number 2 is, hey, this guy's not a threat to Zach Wilson because he sucks. That's what the Giants are doing here. But it's getting a little tiring coming on the show each week and talking about the same shit. Because I know you guys are tired of it, and so am I. But it has to be done. Because I got to put out the information objectively as a content creator, take my fanhood out of it, and yeah. Daniel Jones sucks. We know that. But the thing is, again, as each week goes on, you can't sit here and keep saying Daniel Jones sucks. You can, but we got to stop being mad at Daniel Jones for being Daniel Jones. Though I was called overreacting to Daniel Jones, because I didn't, There was a thing with the New York Post. Paul Schwartz put it out, and he was doing some, it wasn't a podcast, it was a video. And as far as that goes, he was talking about how Daniel Jones was upset. He was mad, not at his performance. Maybe he was mad at his performance, I don't know. But mad at Brian Daboll for benching him. And he said Daboll instead of Dabes or Coach, which is a little uncharacteristic, but he talked about how he wasn't happy about it. It's on Twitter. You guys will get it there. And New York Post probably posts their shit on YouTube, so if you don't have social media, you guys should be fine there. But it's not like, and again, I could be wrong. You guys can school me. But it's not like, I'm unhappy about it because I need to play better. No, he said, I'm unhappy about it, but it's Daboll's team and he gets to do what he wants. Here's the problem I have with Daniel Jones. And again, it's kind of reaching a little bit, but at this point, I don't care. When I mention somebody as fake accountability, it's saying you're sorry, but you're not actually meaning you're sorry because you keep doing the same shit over and over again. It's just like an abusive girlfriend or boyfriend or an abusive friend or something like that, to where they keep saying, oh, I'm sorry. It's kind of like Daniel Jones. And I'm not saying he's abusive, but just listen for 2 seconds how I'm going to compare this, right? He says, the offense, we need to do better. This needs to do better. I need to do better. But it never gets better. His play never gets better. It's one game of average play, slightly above average, the X's and O's. And the rest of the games, it's average. Can't play against a good defense. And it's so bad because, he, in his career, has never really beaten any good defenses. Like, you can never see him going above the X's and O's. Wow, Daniel Jones really cooked that defense. And this is like a top 10 defense. You never really seen that with Daniel Jones. To now, he's playing bad against bad defenses. The Bengals game, the Eagles game, the Cowboys game. Those are 3 games, all of them at home for some reason. And he can't go above the X's and O's or even just play average football against bad defenses. And it's just tiring every week to point out what Daniel Jones is doing wrong. First of all, his pocket presence was shit. I know the offensive line gave up 8 sacks, which is probably the most since sometime last year, because the offensive line last year was fucking atrocious. But there were a couple plays where Daniel Jones is sitting here and use this tub of Vicks, just patting the ball. How many times are you going to pump fake it, bro? He's indecisive about the RPO, and he's not hitting guys in stride. He never throws with anticipation, which has been mentioned on this show before. He doesn't throw with anticipation that the guy's going to get open. He doesn't read zones like that. If you're wide open in a zone, he's going to throw it to you, and you have to either... No, it's not even either. He doesn't overthrow you. He underthrows you. That's what he does. He likes underthrowing people. He likes underthrowing his receivers. Take the play, for example, where Malik Neighbors, right? If you look at the film, he's pointing. He's like, hey, go to Darius Slayton. Slayton's open. What does Daniel Jones do? He doesn't hit him in stride. He throws the ball behind him to where Slayton has to... And I'm not a big Darius Slayton fan, but he has to corral the ball. Not only is it behind him, but it is low. So, I don't understand that he is literally holding the offense back. That's what he's doing. He's holding the offense back. And again, we know Daniel Jones sucks. We know he's not a good quarterback. But Brian Daboll knows what Daniel Jones is. He's not been right now. I think he said this on Monday. He said, Daniel Jones is our quarterback. He's our starter. We can make all these theories. We could talk about, I think Daboll's getting pretty tired of Daniel Jones. He's doing this. And listen, I will predict something. That something being Daniel Jones will start his final game on Monday Night Football. And after that, the Giants will make a move against Washington to start Drew Lock. Now, whether it's for the better or the worse, we will see. But that's my prediction. However, this goes back to the original roots of that conversation, which is the New York Giants, Brian Daboll specifically, because we're talking about the offense, we're talking about the team, knows who Daniel Jones is, how he's limited, and this, that, and the third. And you put yourself in that fucking hole so badly that the rest of the offense is drowning because you don't have enough lifeboats, right? Your quarterback is a terrible boat driver, and he can't navigate through high tides. So what happens is he makes one stupid mistake, the fucking boat flips over, and you have no lifeboats. You have no, not lifeboats. Well, yeah, lifeboats, sure. Life vests. No one has a life vest. Everybody's fucking drowning. That's this situation. And what I mean by that is Daniel Jones didn't throw for 100 yards. That's one thing. Your leading receiver was Malik Neighbors with 41 yards. I mean, that's really not too surprising there. You guys know that Wan'Dale Robinson, and he's not like this great receiver. He is limited in his game because he is a shorter guy. He's about my height. And, you know, he again, route tree, little limited. I still think he's a good receiver. But you guys know that he's 44th in the NFL in receiving yards as of this current moment, as of this recording. But he is first in targets. He is first in targets. Let's take a look. Targets, NFL 2024. Let's just take a look at something. Most targeted players, right? I don't want to go week by week. I want to go total. Okay, so Wan'Dale Robinson is at number 2. Garrett Wilson's at number 1. This is according to fantasypros.com. Wan'Dale was targeted 11 times. Actually, no, they haven't updated for week 7. So that's... Okay, I apologize for pulling up some fake shit. But just go off of that, right? You know. Okay, so it looks like here they registered the targets. Percent... And they don't, every site's like so foggy because this one doesn't even have the total targets on the season. But someone posted on Twitter, first in targets, 44th in receiving yards. Wan'Dale had 6 catches for 23 yards. Tyrone Tracy had 6 rushes for 23 yards. That's 3.8 yards per reception or rush. And you mean to tell me that this type of offense is sustainable? Whoever is telling you that it is sustainable is smoking some type of crack. And I would like some personally because maybe the crack will help me feel good as a Giants fan. And, you know, I don't really like to credit content creators too much because I feel like it never gets back to me. But nonetheless, Nick Filato, who I've had on the show before, and Dan Schneider, they do a podcast called Big Blue Banter. And Dan Schneider was just going off on Daniel Jones. And I'm like, listen, credits to Dan. At the end of the day, I can't get mad anymore because it's not in my power. It's not in my energy. Daniel Jones is who he is, and this is who the Giants fucking throw out there. But going back to the situation about the drowning, not only you have the receiving core, which is drowning, you don't have a single tight end. You had Theo Johnson targeted once, but it wasn't even a real target because, hey, guess what? It was a pass interference penalty. Argue with your mother whether it was a push-off or not. Daniel Bellinger. So one target in real time to the tight end. That's great. That's great, guys. But the Giants cannot sit here and hide the fact that they don't have a running game anymore. 3.8, 3.6 yards per carry. So maybe the average is like 3.7 right in the middle. 11 carries, 41 yards. Right? So 11 carries, 41 yards. You guys do the math on that, right? 11 carries, 41 yards. It's about 3.7 yards per carry. That is not good. That's not even average. And while you could blame the O-line because the O-line was not good in this game, it's probably the worst performance of the season, you can blame Daniel Jones. And people say, you find an excuse. to blame Daniel Jones about everything. It's called basic football, right? People are starting to read into this the more this shit happens. The more this shit happens, right? What happens, and this is, again, another comparison to 2022 Jets. Daniel Jones doesn't have a deep ball. He doesn't. The Giants don't take shots downfield. They don't. So what happens is, for the running game, the Eagles, the Bengals, probably the Steelers, they are going to stack the box. They don't care how many tight ends you put. They don't care if you run the I formation or a spread. Well, spread formation, they're probably not stacking the box because you got 4 receivers out wide. So, you have that. Let's just say it's a regular formation, not spread, maybe 2 tight ends, whatever. They're going to stack the box and force Daniel Jones to beat them. They'll press up on the corners. If they have to, they'll do a safety over the top of Malik Neighbors, but Darius Slayton, I mean, he gets open half the time. He's not like some great receiver. Wandale's not really running long routes. I mean, it's mostly over the middle stuff or out routes. So, defenses know what's coming, and the Giants are trapped in their own hole, and they don't make adjustments, whether that's personnel-wise or that's scheme-wise. And someone said it on Twitter, and I have to agree with them because I don't know anymore. This is Do a Barrel Roll. He does a lot of college tape videos. They're good. The Giants' offensive film sucks. The play designs are ass, but I'm torn. I can't decide why the play designs are ass. How much is because Dable thinks it's a good design, and how much is it because he handcuffs himself since he has a QB with no field vision or anticipation. Now, I could definitely buy into the second part. But here's the thing, though. Is Brian Dable a Josh Allen merchant? It's something really I'm going to start reading into because he had decent rushing offenses in prior years as an offensive coordinator. I'm not counting the Bills. I'm counting the Browns, I'm counting the Chiefs, and I'm counting the Dolphins. Reggie Bush, I think Jamal Charles, and Peyton Hillis. So Peyton Hillis, Jamal Charles, and Reggie Bush. Those 3 guys had 1,000-yard rushing seasons under Brian Dable. But the offenses were bad because the quarterback was bad. I think Matt Castle was the quarterback in Kansas City. I don't remember who the quarterback was in Miami. So we got Kansas City. And then whoever was the quarterback for Cleveland. It was pretty terrible. Again, can't remember, but no, it was Brady Quinn. Brady Quinn was the quarterback, and he came from Notre Dame. But nonetheless, so that's something you got to wonder, right? Is he more advanced in his play calling, but Daniel Jones is holding him back, or is it he's not that good of a play caller outside of Daniel Jones anyway, to where he can't? And the part of me thinks both because they're relevant points, and the 2022 season is where he coached all the testosterone left in Daniel Jones. So, but mentioned Drew Lock, mentioned the running game. And another thing that's the Giants' fault is the O-line. Now, I'm not going to get on the unit as a whole because it's one game. They did play like shit. The statistics are as follows for the 8 sacks. If I could get it up here. Yeah. All right. So, Josh Azudu had 3 pressures and 2 sacks. Runyon had 2 pressures. Schmitz had 1 sack. It was against Nakobe Dean. 5 pressures. Van Roten, 2 sacks and 3 pressures. Jermaine Lemonor, 1 sack and 4 pressures. So, that's your starting O-line. And why am I blaming the Giants for the starting O-line? Is because, you have Andrew Thomas, you have your set guys. Andrew Thomas goes down with the injury, and he's done for the rest of the year. You choose to not play Jermaine Lemonor at left tackle and play Neal at right tackle. Right? Because you think Evan Neal is that bad. You don't trust him. It's clear. They wanted to stick to their guys. And you kind of saw it the first 6 weeks where you had Josh Azudu as the extra tackle on some plays. You didn't have Stinney. You didn't have this guy. You didn't have that guy. No, you had Josh Azudu. Which is so odd because the Giants have been going through this fucking weird experiment for the last few years of Josh Azudu was a guard and now he's a tackle. Let me tell you something. He's not both. And he's not either. He is not an NFL O-lineman. I'm telling you right now. He sucks at left tackle. I said this, and the one guy I didn't account for, which is my apologies, Nolan Smith, because I was focused on Huff and I was focused on Josh Sweat in the preview. Nolan Smith obviously got his fair share. Sweat lines up against the left tackle, and Josh Azudu gave up 2 sacks. But we complimented the Giants. Oh, they remodeled the O-line. Oh, they got the depth. And this, that, and the other thing. Well, let's look at a couple of different things, shall we? Number one, Azudu was their top backup tackle, which is still not reliable. They signed Chris Hubbard, who's a former starter. I think he's in his 30s now. Former Steelers starter, former Titans starter. A couple other teams had him as well. The Browns, I remember, had him at right tackle for a little bit. So he's like average at best. And they signed him off the practice squad during the week. So he wasn't going to play because he didn't know the playbook. And again, you had Josh Azudu as your backup tackle, even with all the competition you brought in. Neal was not that guy, and this is a guy you picked 7th overall. Azudu, you picked in the 3rd round. He still looks like shit. He still looks like the same player under a different O-line coach. And you didn't draft anyone in this class. You didn't take a developmental tackle. You didn't take a this guy or that guy. Because the way I look at it, let's be completely honest with ourselves. Let's look beyond this year and say Joe Shane is staying. And I know you really don't look at this for backup tackles, but nonetheless. Evan Neal is probably not on the roster next year. Aaron Stinney is probably not on the roster next year. He can't even play tackles, so it's not even a conversation. Chris Hubbard is probably not on the roster next year. And I would place my wagers that Josh Azudu is not on the tackle. Not a tackle in the New York Giants next year. So you don't have a plan as a backup tackle. Like, good teams have guys that are ready to come in and out. That's the facts. You see the Eagles do it. You see a couple other teams across the league do it. They just have guys in and out. And they have guys, which seems like the Giants, they fake it so much, right? They fake it. They think they have guys that are good backup tackles when they're not. The closest they got was Tyree Phillips, right? Ty Nsekhe was, I think he's retired now. But he was a guy that for years, he was known as one of the better swing tackles across the NFL. And you see, again, some of these teams, right, whether it's a 4-year contract, this, any other thing, they have this guy because he's a quality backup in the league and capable starter. Josh Azudu is not that. And the Giants fake that because guess what, folks? Guess what? He was drafted in the 3rd round in Joe Shane's first draft. And people posed to me the idea of, oh, well, he didn't have his full scouting staff. What, Joe Shane didn't do scouting in Buffalo? Brian Dable didn't do scouting in Buffalo? They brought some guys over from Buffalo. Some guys they currently still have are in the department, right? He doesn't want to fire Tim McDonald. He brought over Chris Rossetti. Rossetti did scouting. Brendan Brown did scouting. So I really don't want to hear that, to be honest with you. And Ryan Cowden, he's still part of the organization. He did scouting. So this is all about the Giants trying to justify Josh Azudu for whatever reason it is. And they're giving, it's weird. It's so weird. They're giving him more chances than they are Evan Neal. Both guys are not good. Both guys are not starting offensive linemen. But they choose to go with Azudu more at his improper position because he cannot play tackle very clearly. The only reason, folks, they think he could play tackle is because of his foot speed. That's the only thing. His foot speed. That's it. That is it. So, also, I'm going to say this right now. Before we go to the defense, and I've spent a shit ton of time on the offense because the offense is that inept. I hope John Mara is proud of watching the New York Football Giants stadium completely get overrun by Eagle fans, and number two, that this team plays so inept at home. They have over 21 points per game on the road. Now, that's not great. That's about average in the NFL. But at home, 7.75 points per game. It's not home field advantage. Because your team plays like shit, your stadium's a dump, and at the end of the day, when your season is over in October every year, what do you think happens? Giant fans who are reasonable in the mind, right? They're reasonable in the mind. They're season ticket holders, or they paid to come see this game from whoever knows where. They will sell their ticket to the highest bidder on purpose to try to get a message to ownership that we need some sort of change. The product needs to be better. So, Giant fans, if you're listening to me, you're a season ticket holder, you're a guy who's going to the game or possibly thinking about going to a game. I was thinking about 2 weeks ago, because there's, a couple of friends that are coming up from different states. And I'm like, okay, maybe I ought to go to a Washington game. That's not happening. I'm not going to the Washington game. I'm not going to the tailgate either. I'm not doing that. Because I'm not spending my hard-earned money, even for parking, which is like $50, $60, $70 just to get into a spot. And then you go inside, and then you see this fucking product. I went to MetLife Stadium as a fan once last year. Twice for a media opportunity, once as a fan. And they won. That was with Tommy DeVito. And it was actually supposed to be for a media opportunity. It was just a miscommunication that was not my fault. But I just hope that a lot of people in the Giants organization have their eyes on not only the football product, but the product being so bad, fucking fly in my face, being so bad that you have fans from other fan bases invading our stadium. That's acceptable. So, just want to let you guys know that you guys get $20 off your entire order with the promo code Big Blue in the Bronx at SeatGeek.com. You guys want to go to hopefully it's not a Giants game, but you guys are going to a game, you're going to a concert, you need parking passes because you're tailgating. SeatGeek has you covered, $20 off, Big Blue in the Bronx. That is your promo code. So let's talk about the defense. And I feel bad, but I don't. Because certain players deserve a mulligan, and other players don't deserve a mulligan. So let's start with the front. The New York Football Giants got 4 sacks in real time when the game was actually meaningful. Dexter Lawrence had 2, Aziz had 1, and Brian Burns had 1. So the Giants can actually get there with 4 guys, which is pretty good. Dexter Lawrence is a possible candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. He's up there. He leads the NFL in sacks with 9, which is a career high for him. And let's see. I'm going to count the weeks. He had a sack against the Vikings. He definitely had a sack against the Browns. He did not have a sack against the Cowboys. I don't remember if he had a sack against Washington. I'm going to say that he did, just for right now. So you have that. Week 4 down against the Cowboys. He had 1 against the Seahawks. He had 1 against the Bengals. So he's got 1 game this season where he has not had a sack. To my knowledge. Again, I could be wrong. But it's just, you're looking at this defense, you're looking at this front and be like, wow, even with Thibodeau out, they could get to the passer. And this is like a decent offensive line for the Eagles, right? They have 1 injury lingering. Mekhi Becton was out with concussion. And they also had Fred Johnson at left tackle against Brian Burns. But that wasn't even the great story, unfortunately. That wasn't even the story. They couldn't even attack that properly because the defense, in my opinion, they gave up in the second half. That's number 1. Number 2 is that the offense couldn't score, so the benches, the sideline benches for the defense were so fucking cold because it's not like you could sit down and be like, oh, I'm going to sit here for about a few minutes. No. No. They did not do that. They did not do that. They sat down on the bench for 2 minutes, had to get back up. 2 minutes, got back up. Because the offense doesn't know how to sustain a drive. They don't know how to put points together. They don't know how to do anything. They know how to do all the wrong things. Let's start with that. But Brian Burns, he's finally coming along. Him and Aziz, I believe, are tied for 4 sacks on the team. The Giants still lead the NFL. Again, Dexter Lawrence is a force against the run. He's a force against the pass, definitely. So he is in line to be one of the candidates for Defensive Player of the Year. And credit to him, but I can't give the defense full credit because you gave up 14 points in the second half, a touchdown each quarter in the second half. And at the end of the day, this was also a bad game for the Giants' rushing defense, where you could say, okay, the pass defense, 114 yards. That's not bad, right? You also had 2 Jalen Hurts touchdowns. You had 1 Saquon Barkley touchdown, who had 176 yards, 10.4 yards per carry, and 17 carries. Now, let's just say you want to do the math like I always do, and you take off the longest run, which is 55 yards. That's 121. You divide that by 17. That's still 7.1 yards per carry, which is not good. That is beneath the NFL average in terms of run defense. That was a bad game from the run defense. They still gave up 4.3 yards per carry to Kenneth Gainwell when he was taking a majority of the snaps, and also Will Shipley. The game was over pretty much by then. The time he came in, which I believe is the running back at Clemson that they drafted. But Barkley tore us up. And the Giants, I don't know what to say anymore. Like, I would love to dissect what went wrong. I think the Giants still kind of have a D-line problem. It's interesting because you could kind of read some things in between the lines with the media. Jordan Riley might be on his way out, which I'm kind of surprised in. First of all, I'm surprised that he didn't even get enough snaps the first 7 games. And they signed this guy, Armon Watts, from the Vikings and a number of other teams. And I believe they have a corresponding move to make. And I mean, that's unless Andrew Thomas was put on IR and they didn't sign somebody else. But I'm pretty sure that's covered with the Chris Hubbard move. But they signed Armon Watts, so that makes it along with Chapman. That makes it along with all the other guys, Raheem Nunez-Roches, DJ Davidson. So one of those guys has to be out, and a lot of people are predicting it's Jordan Riley. Has he been that bad, or is it just not him being used? I mean, listen, we could always go out there and make our presumptions. We can make our presumptions, if you will. So there's that. But the run defense was pretty damn awful. And the Eagles, they could have scored 50. But this Eagles team isn't that good. But they're better than us. So what am I going to say? The Eagles are 2-1 away. We're fucking 0-4 at home. So there's that. And again, they are being wasted. This is a game that could become a microcosm of why Brian Daboll might get fired. Because your offense doesn't do dick. Whether it's Drew Lock, Daniel Jones, whoever, but I'll use Daniel Jones because we've seen the same bullshit for 6 years. First few games, Daniel Jones plays average football. It's not nearly enough. And your defense literally has to break its back and then some to win the football games for you. Like, there is not a game this season where I say, okay, it's the offense, they won the game. No, because the Giants have never scored over 23 points. The one game against the Browns, the offense didn't score in the second half. The game against the Seahawks, offense barely scored in the second half. They couldn't convert. They couldn't throw touchdowns. They had to kick with field goals. And at the end of the day, they almost tied the game because the defense was breaking its fucking back. It was 23-20. Myers lining up for the kick, and it just happens to be blocked on special teams. So that's more luck than anything. And the defense has kept this team in games. It's not, the offense is keeping games. The defense has kept them in games. So, work to the wise. Brian Daboll, make a fucking change schematically or personnel-wise. We already know what that is, so I don't need to get into it. But let me go and rant on a player right here. Let me go and rant. And it's not just on him because it's a microcosm, again, of what might happen in the next few games with the New York Football Giants. That's Deonte Banks. Now, he didn't have a terrible game, right? I mean, A.J. Brown, that 41-yard touchdown, that was not his fault. That was Nick McLeod for some reason. He was on that play. So you take away the yardage, and about 48 yards, 5 catches, whatever, right? And I don't think he covered Barkley. Devonta Smith had -2 receiving yards, so that was interesting. Of course, most of their force was used in the ground game, as we talked about. Now, when we go to that ground game, we talk about tackling. And it seems like Deonte Banks is losing it. This is a guy the New York Giants traded up for in the 2023 draft to be their number 1 corner. He had a decent rookie season last year. Now we're seeing he's in a different system, same fucking team, and he's giving up. There is no literal question that he's giving up. There was a play against the Cowboys where CeeDee Lamb was open. He got absolutely railroaded in coverage, and he had a terrible effort on the tackle. He let him walk into the end zone. I think that was 40-plus yards or 30-plus yards. Tyler Nubin had a bad angle, but at least Nubin had effort. Deonte Banks didn't. So that's number 1. And Jerome Henderson said to the media, basically, I don't like that. That's not effort. And basically questioned it, right? So you have that, which it's on record that the Giants are unhappy with it, and that's not the first time. And then you go to this game where Jalen Hurts takes off. He takes off for a run, and it's actually, people have it on video. He takes off, and he's so lackadaisical. He looks like he's going to tackle, but then he just... And here's the thing. You saw that Jerome Henderson ripped him on the sideline. But let's go into something else, shall we? Let's go into something else. This is not fake. This is real. Someone pointed it out. This was, I believe, in a Dan Duggan article. When Deonte Banks was asked about the tackle attempt, I think I could have made it, but sometimes when you're in that moment, you're just like, nah. But I think I could have made a tackle. Ladies and gentlemen, the fact that you're even thinking about nah shows that you should be benched. I understand in every facet, and I've been talking about it for weeks, that this defense has been breaking their fucking ass. Has been breaking their fucking ass the last few weeks because Daniel Jones, horrible quarterback. But Dexter Lawrence is trying. Brian Burns is trying. Azeez Ojulari is trying. Apparently those rules don't fucking apply to Deonte Banks. Not only is he not a number 1, but it seems like he's just going to give up, right? Cordell Flott, I mean, he's not a great tackler, but he plays. Drew Phillips, he's a rookie. He plays well. But why does Deonte Banks have to be exempt from that? I know Adoree Jackson is injured with the neck, and Nick McLeod's not a good corner either. If you have some balls, and if you try to reel in the locker room, here's what you do. You bench Daniel Jones, and you bench Deonte Banks. Because this is not the last time that Deonte Banks is going to do this. Whether you have Jones in, or you have Drew Lock, or you have Tommy DeVito, and maybe there's a game, I'm not going to say that the Giants, either way, will be some great prolific offense with Locke or DeVito at the helm. I think it could be better. I'm not saying it will be. But let's just say the Giants are down in the game and Deonte Banks has that same lackadaisical effort as he had this game and he did the Cowboy game. Right? And the Cowboy game, the Giants, I think were in the lead at that point. I think they had a 3-0 lead. So why the lackadaisical effort? Again, you shouldn't even have the thought of, nah, you make the tackle. Deonte Banks is a loser. That's that. So, that's all I have about the defense. And let's start closing it up because this is probably the longest show I've ran with the entire season because the wheels on the bus are falling off. I'm going to take a sip and then I'll diagnose this. Here's the problem, right? Obviously, I've stopped defending Brian Dable about the handcuff crap. I've been done with Daniel Jones for a solid year now because of his injuries and because of his inconsistencies as a quarterback. So say this goes the route we all think it's going. I don't think it's a good route, and I don't think this has a good end to it. Because you may ask why. Alex, why do you say that? The head coach is going to get fired. The quarterback's going to be out. Well, let's see. I don't really trust Joe Schoen to evaluate talent. Right? Let's take a look at the roster, shall we? Let's take a look at the roster. Joe Schoen signed Daniel Jones to that contract that a lot of people thought was team-friendly. He signed Drew Lock as a backup quarterback because they didn't want pressure on Daniel Jones. He signed Singletary, and let's not forget, I didn't even bring this up. He looked like an absolute clown. A clown. Because Saquon Barkley ran all over the Giants' defense, and a good defense at that. And Joe Schoen sitting in his box watching Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary rush for 41 yards combined. And you want to do percentages? Go ahead. 23% of those yards. So you take all that yardage for Tracy. You take that yardage for Singletary. You combine it, that's 41. That was 23% of Saquon Barkley's yards. You know how laughable that is? And look, at the time I did say, it is time to let Saquon go. But when I saw Hard Knocks, I'm like, maybe this is why they're overblowing the story, because Joe Schoen had a smart-ass attitude. Devin Singletary is a worse running back. He's similar in age. I think they're 1-2 draft classes off. Singletary was 2019, Barkley was 2018. Obviously, Barkley was going to cost more money. And the Giants definitely could have fit in the money, but of course, they had signed Daniel Jones the year prior. And him and Dable came up with this philosophy of, let's make Daniel Jones throw it 30 to 40 times a game, and he could be our Josh Allen, and we get Malik Neighbors and a solid O-line, and that's all over. Well, again, folks, to points that I brought up in the beginning of the show, you can't change the color of the car because the engine sucks. That's what the Giants attempted to do. And Saquon Barkley, he's a silent assassin. I know Giant fans were mad at him, boo him, this and the other thing. Well, guess what? He absolutely stepped on us like we were a fucking lantern fly, like we were some stupid bug. So there's that. But why am I pointing out Joe Schoen this, Brian Dable this, Daniel Jones this? I think if Brian Dable gets fired, if Daniel Jones leaves, which I think Daniel Jones is absolutely done with this season, Joe Schoen's going to get another shot, and I don't trust him to evaluate talent. But we also, again, have to go back to the drawing board. That's kind of where I lost my train of thought. How about Jalen Hyatt, right? How about Jalen Hyatt? He drops a ball. Debate whether you think it's good effort or not. The guy has one reception. We thought, okay, this guy could groom to something. Well, apparently not, because the Giants, they traded up for this guy. He had a limited route tree, and now they're not using him. They are not using him at all. So, another great draft pick right there. Good job, Joe Schoen. Theo Johnson, not being used. There's that. 11 receptions, 115 yards. Was advertised as, this guy's an electric tight end. Yeah, he barely used. Daniel Bellinger, where's he been, right? Not much this season. I like Daniel Bellinger, I do. But the Giants seem to not like him. They like Chris Manhertz more. Bellinger, for a capable passing tight end, has 3 catches for 31 yards. 3 catches for 31 yards. So that's another stinky draft pick. Because the thing is, and I know people say, you drafted him in the 4th round. Why do you have all these expectations? Well, they showed it to us. They said Theo Johnson was this great tight end. They said that Daniel Bellinger, even through his rookie year, was solid. I can't imagine that the Giants re-signed Daniel Bellinger at the end of the 4 years. Right? So let's keep moving down the board. Jake Kubas I'll give, but he has not seen the field yet. Josh Zudu stinks. We know that one. John Michael Schmitz, right in the middle, as of right now. And let's also rerun this. Evan Neal, complete bust. You signed Van Roten, you signed Runyon, you signed Eliminor because guess what? You fucked up the O-line the first time with Glowinski, Feliciano, McKeithen, Azudu, etc., etc. Elijah Chapman, good for what he is. Jordan Riley, he's getting phased out. Raheem Nunez-Roches, he's solid. So not many fuck-ups in the D-line room. The linebacker room, Boogie Basham, he's inactive almost every week. And they traded a 6th. I think it was either they traded a 7th to get a 6th or some shit like that. It was a weird trade. So Boogie Basham, right? Great guy. Great trade. Patrick Johnson, I'm not even... Micah McFadden is a steal. I'll give him that. Darius Masau, it seems like he's just going to be a special teamer. Eric Gray, I think we went back to Eric Gray earlier. If we didn't, I apologize. But Eric Gray, not a good running back. And, also as well, he's not a good returner. So he's a limited special teamer with limited pass blocking capabilities and limited pass catching capabilities. So he's a limited guy. Okereke, that's a good signing. But it seems like he's not really found his footing in this scheme. Banks looks like a bust right now. Dane Belton, it seems like he could be a role player over the next few years. But, the jury's out on that one. That was a questionable pick at the time. Cordell Flott, he's a solid corner too. Trey Hawkins just looks like, he's an outside corner, inside corner, whatever. He's a, depth piece. Stupid enough that the Giants tried to start him and put Adoree' in the slot. Of course, that was last year. You move down the list. Newbin. I think a lot of people actually overrate him. I think he's done decent, though. I think he's been better in the box than he is a deep guy. So you let McKinney walk. He's got 5 interceptions this season, not to mention he had a big sack on C.J. Stroud. Phillips, solid. Simmons, obviously that was a decent trade, but he's not really used much in this defense. Jason Pinnock, solid pickup. To anyone who's on IR that actually has a relevant point, Kayvon Thibodeau, you're not going to like this one, everybody, but he is underwhelming for his status. He's expected to be a Myles Garrett or a Nick Bosa, and he is not really in that crowd. But we'll save that for later. I've taken enough of your time, guys. Like, comment, subscribe to all the good stuff. Turn on post notifications so you know when a live stream pops or video drops. Share this out on podcast platforms. Use the SeatGeek code. I appreciate you guys very much for tuning in to my banter for almost an hour. Keep that blood pressure low. If you got an alternate team, focus on that. The Yankees. Be happy about the Mets, right? They almost made the World Series. The Knicks, they're playing. The Rangers, right? They're good. So just focus on an alternate team. And by the way, if you're a Liberty fan, go focus on the Liberty, right? They just won the WNBA championship. But appreciate you guys. And we will talk to you later this week. Hopefully I get a Pittsburgh Steelers guy on, and we'll get to break that down. Peace out.